What's up, guys? Today I want to break down the entire creative strategy that I would use if I were to launch a brand new product, right? Like from today, if I were to actually do product research again and do it one more time in terms of a completely new brand from scratch, this is how I'd build it. This is exactly from A to Z how I would launch everything. And these are things that, basically we've applied to brands that you can see here on the screens. They're case studies of us. And basically, for example, this guy, we've scaled up to $400,000 in active monthly recurring revenue. Very recent case study here, active 4K a day. Or every other band that you see on the screen here, still active to this day here. And the reason I'm making this video is because I've seen a lot of people that are just not quite there when it comes to scaling yet. And so when I make these videos about, how to basically build and scale your team, how to, lower churn and all that kind of stuff, really I feel like they don't really resonate a lot with the people that are watching my videos. And so if this is for you specifically, when, you have been launching products, you've been launching your ads, you've been ripping content, you've been working on that, but it hasn't really clicked yet. You haven't really had any consistent winners yet. Maybe you've had, a 10K day before, whatever, but just you couldn't have actually, made it consistent, right? Maybe that's you. And so in both those situations, I actually do think this video is going to help you a lot. Some type of system in this video, you're going to actually, I'm pretty sure you're going to, is going to be new to you, and therefore you're actually going to be able to consistently take that over, apply it, and actually go ahead and scale for yourself, right? Because this, at the end of the day, I don't think people should struggle with information. I think they should struggle with the execution. That's the reality, right? People struggle with the application, the execution of information, not the actual strategies itself. That's why I'm giving it all away on YouTube. There's nothing gate kept here, okay? So the way that I would launch anything, right? So this is already the first mistake which most people make. Basically, you pick one channel, one language, and minimum 2 offers. I'm going to explain this. So one channel means you do this, for example, only on Meta, right? This video is going to be fully for Meta creative strategies, right? Obviously, there's people that launch on Google and Meta at the same time. There's people that launch on Pinterest and Meta. There's people launching TikTok ads in Meta. There's people that launch organic and Meta, whatever. I always recommend having one channel active and figuring out one channel before doing anything else, okay? So one channel, one language, which means technically one market. If you're, for example, in a European market, don't do 10 countries at once. The only way where you can do multiple countries if all of those countries speak the same language. This is why I've written here one language instead of just one market. So obviously the best example is the English markets. Obviously we have the top 4, top 5 English speaking countries. And so therefore, obviously you can group those amongst each other. And you don't have to necessarily only the US, only Canada, only UK, or whatever. And this is going to be something which we're going to talk about here when it comes to the research. Maybe you find out I have to take it over to another market. Besides that, one language, very important. And then basically at least 2 offers. So before we even get into how to do the research, right? How to actually, brief all the concepts, how to, structure your avatars, how to iterate your ads, anything like that. Before we get into that, you need to have minimum 2 offers, right? Offers, and specifically an A/B test. So why minimum 2? Well, obviously you could launch a bunch of ads for 10 different offers if you wanted to, and really wanted to give yourself the highest hit rate of your products tested. You would do as many offers as you can, and at least 2. So if I ever see someone basically testing a product with 1 offer on it, you're limiting your website success by half. You're cutting the chance of your product hitting by half, because the most important part of your website, guess what, is going to be your offer, right? And so if you increase the amount of offers that you test and make them as different from each other as possible, you just increase the odds of anything working on your store. And so this is specifically speaking about, for example, price tests, offer structure tests, maybe different free gifts, maybe MRR versus no MRR, all of these different structures you can test against each other, and you should test them against each other, okay? So that's the first thing. Now, after this, we're going to basically do these 3 categories, right? So this is where the actual research and the preparation starts. And this is already, once again, the next thing which most people actually fail at, because they don't do these things. And even if they do these things, they don't know why they've done it, because some, YouTuber and e-commerce talked about it, or they actually make them and understand why they did it, but never go through them. And so this applies specifically for these foundational docs that I'm going to talk about. First thing we're going to do is competitor variables spreadsheet. Okay, so we're going to fill out a spreadsheet which is specifically for your direct and indirect competitors. And the idea is that you want to fill this out with variables on a high impact test perspective. What is a high impact test? A high impact test is not the opposite of very specific, very small things. For example, the editing, pacing, and stuff like that. That'd be very low impact. A high impact test is a different avatar, a different angle, a different desire, a different concept, right? These are higher impact variables. So what you want to do is you want to find for multiple competitors, direct and indirect, their most common variables, angles, desires, concepts, and so on, right? And so specifically, this is the cool thing, or this is actually the thing where most people fail at. This has to be done by a person. This can't be done by AI. This is one of those things that, when people say, oh, I did my research, they basically just ran a deep research with AI. You haven't done anything because you haven't understood it. You haven't seen it yourself. You haven't, actually felt it. And so this is basically what this variable spreadsheet does for you. First of all, you get a good feeling of, how many active, good, big, serious competitors you have. Second of all, you actually start to notice patterns, and that is the most important part of business overall, pattern recognition. I can tell you that that's going to be the most high paying skill set you can develop. Okay. So the reason why, right, we want to do this ourselves or have a creative strategist do this is because then you're not only going to learn all these things from that, but also have all these things that AI literally can't do for you. AI can't tell you, right, how many active ads each competitor has in terms of, find me three brands with 100 plus active ads, and then, this and that many page likes, and this and that is the most common ad concept, and all these things. You have to do that yourself. Okay. So specifically what we're going to do is we're going to blend all variables that we fill out here, all the lines, all the different competitors here together, and we're going to check which of these things they all have in common. So we're going to look for the same avatar, same angle, most common ad concept, main awareness stage, and then active ads. Obviously want to only write down ones with at least 100, for example. Okay. And so the idea is you want to find things that all the brands have in common. So let's say you write down 5 brands here, and you figure out, for example, the most common ad concept is a static native ad with no text at all on it. Okay. So if that's the concept that you run and you see works consistently, that's the only variable that they all have in common, then that is going to be your only winning variable, which you're then going to take over, right? That's just an example. Most cases, you're actually going to find multiple variables that they have in common. Therefore, you have multiple winning variables that you can actually just copy, right? So this is not ripping. This is very different from ripping because you're just going to take, pieces out of ads, information, and this is the interpretation of an ad. This is why exactly AI can't do this for you, okay? So this is the most important research part here. And this is, by the way, a screenshot of one of the spreadsheets that we use for the research. After this, we're going to do the market research with AI with the foundational docs. So I'm still a fan of doing this. Don't get me wrong. It's still very powerful to obviously have this, full on, gone through all the Amazon competitors and all the Reddit posts and everything. That is obviously something which you shouldn't do yourself. Why would you do that yourself? You're just wasting time if you scroll through 2-3 different Amazon main competitors. This is not there for you to technically understand this. This is there for you having a whole research doc, right, with everything involved that you can then, for example, use to copyright with AI, but also go through yourself to have a summary of the entire market. And so very powerful in both situations. Now, what you're going to do is specifically this should focus on every possible avatar. And this is very different from this here because this is actual avatars that are being ran. You want to figure out how many different people can I even sell it to, right? This is what AI can do for you. Then also beliefs and awareness stages, right? So this is once again very different, right? Which beliefs do you have to actually change when it comes to their ego, when it comes to the problem? How do you actually make them believe that you're the best competitor, etc.? Then you're going to basically do the awareness stage research, and then also the solution-aware customer knowledge. And this is very important, and I'm going to explain this. So the solution-aware customer knowledge, right, is essentially that you go ahead and actually see if someone of your audience is in the solution-aware awareness stage. What you're going to look at is what other solutions have they heard of? Do they perceive positively? Do they dislike? And basically, have they already tried? So these are kind of the 4 things you have to keep in mind, because when it comes to, most importantly, actually, what they already heard of, what they perceive well and what they perceive, not so well, what you're going to notice is you're going to see a big pattern in, for example, specific other competitors and specific other solutions and products that they've already tried. The reason why I want to do this, and you don't want to do this yourself here, but actually in the foundational doc stuff with AI, is because if you discredit the incorrect solutions, right, the incorrect customer knowledge, so to say, what's going to happen is you're going to basically not resonate with anyone, right? So let's say, as an example, you sell some type of testosterone boosting product, right? And an alternative solution would be, I don't know, let's say going to the gym. Okay, so a completely different solution, obviously, signing up for a gym and increasing testosterone like that. This is for example, people that don't work out, whatever, okay? So if that's your customer avatar, and you, let's say, instead of talking about, or let's say people look at this gym situation of, oh yeah, I could actually sign up for a gym. I could probably, increase my test like that. So what you do instead is you go in and tell them, or the mistake would be if you tell them, hey, you can drink this, you can take that, solutions that they've never really heard of. And so most people do this. Most people, when they write scripts and they discredit the completely incorrect solutions because they don't actually know what other solutions customers are aware of, and then which ones of those they like, have already tried, and which ones they don't like, right? And this is what you find out. And this is very important. One of the most important parts when it comes to actually resonating with your avatar. And then we have the impact grading. So let me explain this, right? We want to, when it comes to all these different avatars and all these different things, be able to rank how important each of those are. Because sometimes for some products and some brands, you're going to notice they have 10 different avatars and it's completely different from each other and nothing repeats itself, and that's how they make their money. For other brands, you're going to see, for example, all the same one avatar, but for example, 10 different desires that they talk about. So what you're going to need to understand is you need to blend everything together and understand, how many competitors use the same avatar you want to use the same concepts you want to use, and also what are they iterating on the most. And this is going to be the very, very, very most important thing, also noticeable here, okay? So therefore, out of these first two research things, right, when we have all this done and we have like a little bit of an understanding, we have this done by yourself for your career strategist, you have this done with AI, and then you've done this based off of these two documents that you have. Basically, out of these, what's crystal clear now is the market gap, because essentially the difference between this and this here is going to be the market gap. This here, the market research with the foundational docs, as you already understood, it's the most overview, the biggest perspective of the entire market. This is every possible avatar, every belief, every other solution that they potentially already could have tried. So this is everything. This is what actually is being read in the market. These are very different things. The foundational doc is not, and this is very important, not what the competitors do. It's what's possible. This here is what the competitors already do. And so therefore, the market gap is the in-between. What is not being read yet, but it's still a possibility. That's why these two make your market gap very, very clear. This is how you figure out a market gap. And then the impact grading will basically determine what, is actually the things that you're going to test in that market gap, because we're still going to be left over with a gazillion different variables. But if you notice, let's say that the market gap is a very specific avatar, but no one really competes on avatars, then that means that this probably already been tried and tested before, it just failed. If you notice, everyone has a different avatar and you've actually found one, right, that they haven't done yet, well then might as well do that, right? And so this is going to lead to a very famous 80-20 rule, because 80% of the ads you're going to launch are going to be competitor based, so based off of this spreadsheet and not this here, and then 20% are these two things, so impact rating additionally with the market research, so the foundational docs, right? Only 20%. So this is why ripping ads work. Ripping ads works because it's already super proven, right? It's already proven literally to sell. This is nothing really with your marketing involved. So this is why when you're ripping ads, straight up ripping, you don't learn anything. If you're actually making competitor-based ads, but you're changing them up slightly, but you're only keeping the actual variables that work, you are learning. So that's the big difference between ripping and this strategy right here. Okay, so 80-20 rule, keep that in mind. Now, from here, when we have all this done, we're going to basically move on to the avatar split, or like the actual kind of planning of, how we're going to split up each avatar, each desire, and everything like that. So this is basically look like this. We're going to take at least two avatars that we want to test. It could be both competitor-based, to be fair, right? It could be both. For example, this one could be something which is competitor-based. Could be this one, could be new. Doesn't matter. Ideally, avatars should both be competitor-based. And then the desires are actually what's usually new. So this is going to be the interesting part, because this is where you actually have multiple desires for each avatar. The logical or practical explanation for this is essentially that you have possibilities of 3 different desires to pick from. Usually there's health, wealth, and relationships. For every product, there's benefits in all these 3 sections, or every problem that's being solved has benefits in all these 3. And you can actually pick which one you talk about mainly. Health benefits, you can have wealth or career benefits, and then you can obviously have relationship benefits, right, with the problem you solve. So an example for this could be like this. Let's say you sell, again, testosterone booster, first of all, to younger men, and then to older men. Okay, so the older men may be interested in the health benefits, right, and then the wealth benefits. So that might be 2 desires there. And then the younger younger men maybe are more interested in actually relationship benefits and health benefits. Okay, so maybe building muscle, and then this is losing weight or whatever. And then the interesting difference between these, for example, how you can actually practically get your 80-20 rule is, let's say these three here are competitor based. So let's say old men, health, competitor based. Someone has already done this and figure this out in the spreadsheet here, right? Same way as you would figure out, okay, someone's already talked about the wealth benefits of more testosterone for older men. Once again, you find that out here. And then for younger men, maybe someone's already talked about the relationship benefits. However, no one is, like, maybe potentially, I'm just making this up, talked about the health benefits of younger men. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to notice, okay, this is 75% common competitor based and only 25% basically new to market. And so this would basically be our 80-20 rule, right? 75% to 25 is basically the same as an 80 to 20. Okay, so this would actually be a very interesting positive split when it comes to how to do this. Now from here, when you have your avatars, you're going to start the briefing process. Okay, so this basically means that you're going to actually start and transition these ideas into actual concepts. And so this is going to basically look like this. You have two different documents, one for video ads and one for image ads. Keep in mind, you can actually do separate isolated tests before this. So I've not written this down in this video because I feel like I've already talked about that often enough when it comes to the hook test, when it comes to the avatar test, mechanism test. You can actually run image ads, right, that are just complete squares, basic squares with only text in the middle of them, and isolate that. The most common version of doing that is the hook, right? So I'd say you test 30 images with nothing but text in the middle, no visual on the image, and you spend like $2 on each, take, only the hooks that are basically above 7% and only put those into the concept. So this is something which you do after the avatar kind of split and the actual like planning of everything. So therefore, after you've done all that, I'm going to move on to the briefing process. And so let's say we wanted to do a split between VSLs and image ads. The way that you pick your concepts, again, we want to do this 80-20. So 80% of the concepts you should basically take inspiration of by competitors. If you notice, everyone does image ads, then there's absolutely no reason to do anything else than that. Usually people say, oh yeah, you're going to basically get bad traffic quality. That's not true, because there's always, first of all, always enough like market share for everyone to get a little bit of piece of the pie. And the second thing is, if you reinvent the wheel and try to, then it's not going to work. Like, I can guarantee your hit rates will be lower if you do it like that compared to just actually just following competitor-based structure, right? Again, keep in mind, not by ripping, but actually just by taking a concept and making it your own, remaking it basically. So you're going to pick your winning hook, which is going to be filled out in the ad text column here. And the ad visual is going to be, for example, a screenshot of a competitor ad. This is what you want to fill out so that you have a system behind it. Most people struggle with remembering what they've already tested before because they haven't had a structure of actually tracking what they've tested, right? And this is basically the same thing for a video ad. So there's obviously different, hook types, problem-based, visual, mechanism-based, for example, the outcome-based or whatever you want to do. And then you want to do basically, again, scene script, add visuals, add text, and editor notes. So the same thing applies for both image and video. You can fill out these tables, you can remake these documents for yourself. Very, very simple to do, and it's going to be very effective, because the opposite of this would be to not have a system and to not remember what you basically test. Problem with that is basically the more you grow without solving your problems, you're growing your problems, okay? So this is the most important part. If you grow without solving your problems, you're growing them. And so that's the big issue. You have to actually fix them first, put the systems in place, build the foundation, then scale up, okay? This is important. Now, when you launch, what's going to happen is you're going to have 1 or 2 or 3 concepts that do better than the rest, right? Doesn't mean that if they're profitable, they could be ridiculously profitable. They could also be ridiculously unprofitable, but they're going to perform better than the rest. And this is something which I've talked about recently in another video of mine, but this is the new post-Andromeda iteration process, because obviously we want to still make concepts that already worked even better. So what we're going to do, and take the original best concept that you have, right? So let's say you tested everything, figure out that batch 1, variation 5 is the best. Cool. What you're going to do is you're going to look at the weakest metric out of that concept and then basically have an entry into your winning or losing variable spreadsheet. However, the important part is basically you're going to fix this weakest metric. So you're going to basically test multiple variations and combine it with new concepts. So instead of, and this is the important part, that's what changed for the previous iteration process, instead of taking the same exact piece of content, right, and just making that change on it and relaunching, you're actually going to fix that variable. For example, let's say you want to add a solution aware badge to it, or like a guarantee badge or something. Or let's say, for example, easiest probably to think about would be, let's say you wanted to like, obviously, let's say they didn't resonate with the, like, let's say conversion rate is the worst. Okay, I'm just making something up. Let's say the conversion rate of your ad is the weakest metric. Well, then obviously the best move to make, let's say, would be to give away more information in your image ad. So let's say you give away the offer, the price tag, whatever. So what you do is you don't do it on the same ad, you do it on new concepts. And then you retest the new concepts with more disqualifiers, so-called, so more of these offer, price tag, whatever. And then you do the same. So you take all of this best, newest concept, which is going to be significantly better in this, the best actual like concept, weakest metric, but instead of iterating it on the same exact concept, you're going to combine it with new concepts again. And like this is how the iteration process really works. You're going to keep making your ads better significantly every single step of the way. And this is pretty much the entire creative process. This is obviously the theory, so this is not the practical execution, and this is what matters the most. So start doing this, start taking this seriously, and I can tell you that 90% of e-com is very boring, right? 90% of the work that you will do always is going to be super boring, and it's going to not be fun and not enjoyable. However, this is what this business model really looks like. You have to actually go through this. You have to go through this process. You have to do more. I can guarantee you most dropshippers do not do this. So therefore, if you do, you have a higher chance of making anything work. And that is basically what you want to do. You will always look for things that improve your odds of the things work in your favor. Use your unfair advantages in your business. Okay, that was pretty much it for this video. I want to thank you so much for giving me your most important asset, which is your attention. I wish you a beautiful day.